using the Samsung Galaxy S3 in 2024 and beyond. I recently did myself a little retro project. I bought a Samsung Galaxy S3 on eBay for about $50 Australian. That's not bad, considering the specifications of this device, although I would have expected to pay a bit less, maybe more like $30, considering the phone's age. This is the 4G LTE variant of the Samsung Galaxy S3. The traditional model is only capable of connecting to 2G and 3G networks. This model should be able to connect to 4G networks, and I am hoping it won't be impacted by the nationwide 3G network closure that's currently underway in Australia. Certain phones such as the iPhone 5, Samsung Galaxy S5, and other old phones will no longer be able to connect to Telstra or Optus networks after the telcos shut down their 3G networks. However, they say that you must have a device which has LTE, or VoLTE, basically. If your phone does not have any form of LTE, you're screwed once the big players stop supporting 3G, so it's highly recommended you upgrade to a new phone if your current one does not support LTE or VoLTE calls. Anyway, what's this 12-year-old phone like to use in 2024? Let's find out. First of all, you will notice the TouchWiz interface that used to be the default skin on Samsung devices before One UI hit the scene in 2017. Many did not like TouchWiz and thought it was bloated. However, I admire the design of the UI, and I prefer it to more modern Android skins. This phone runs Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, so it's quite outdated and likely won't be able to run a lot of modern apps. But I have been thinking about using this phone for older mobile games such as Ashpult 6. I'll have to see what sort of games I can find for my Galaxy S3. This phone boasts 2GB of RAM, and 16GB of onboard storage, with expandable memory up to 64GB. It also uses a micro SIM card slot, which predates the nano SIM card slots found on most modern devices. The Samsung Galaxy S3 has a fairly decent camera, considering its age, and this one has some minor marks and scratches, but the camera lens appears to be in pretty good condition. I will put in some sample shots I got on the Galaxy S3 to show you just how good this $50 phone's camera is. I pushed this phone to its limits with a game called Ashpult 6, the 6th installment in the Ashpult Racing franchise. I love this game series, and I had never played the 6th installment up until I had a Galaxy S3. This game won't work on newer versions of Android, presumably Lollipop and higher, so Jelly Bean is perfect for this game. While there are much more powerful phones on the market today, you got to admit, back in 2012, the competition was fairly small, and Apple was a far bigger player in the smartphone market back in the early days of the iPhone. But since the Open Handset Alliance and the birth of Android, this sparked a whole new world of innovation, creativity, and most of all, power. And in terms of value for money and specifications, the Samsung Galaxy S3 offered more compared to some of its counterparts, including the iPhone 4 and iPhone 3G. The Galaxy S3 was also a major departure from the Galaxy S2, featuring a more rounded style for the body, and it has a larger display than its predecessor, and the best feature about this bad boy is that you can replace the goddamn battery. Yep, it has a removable cover, which provides you access to the SIM card and SD card slots, as well as the battery compartment. This phone's battery seems to last a long time when doing fairly basic tasks. But anytime I hit the road in Ashpult 6, the numbers drop quickly, so I may end up purchasing a replacement battery, just to be sure the old battery is not worn out, which it likely is, and I will also purchase a lovely case of some sort, as well as a screen protector. I want to take good care of this old smartphone. I know it's ancient, and honestly, in most cases, I would say that the Galaxy S3 is not worth buying. However, if you're on an extremely tight budget, or maybe you need a backup phone or want an old phone for emulation, whatever it may be, you can find good ways to reuse these obsolete devices. Old phones and tablets can serve as security cameras, retro gaming devices, smart displays, etc. And as long as it can continue to connect to networks in your area, you will have no problems using it for phone calls and texting. Mind you, I live in an area where 3G is quickly dying, but luckily, I got the 4G LTE variant, so hopefully, this meets the minimum requirements to be able to continue operating on 4G networks after the 3G closure is fully complete. I am almost certain it will, but if not, I am glad I still have far better, more modern phones, which will be capable of running on newer generation networks and technology. I am surprised 2G is still a thing in some countries, as many have already phased out 2G. Now 3G is on the brink of death, and soon, it will be 4G's turn to go to the graveyard. So unless you really have a specific use case for an older smartphone, I would go against buying one, as you're likely to find many which are not working, or listed for parts only. I am so glad I was able to find a functional unit for so cheap. I mean, you certainly could get cheaper, but consider the phone's specifications, and the fact that this was a flagship device back in the day, and you will soon see why this phone, even to this day, is loved by millions of people worldwide. I plan on getting a Galaxy S4 at some point in the future, as I would like to do some personal projects with Android devices. I want to have a go at rooting a phone and flashing a custom ROM on it. This is quite difficult with Samsung's because they have hardened security measures which makes it difficult to unlock the bootloader, but I am sure I will find a way to root the bastard. I also plan on having a cheap smart display, and the perfect candidate for that would be an old Android tablet, perhaps a Samsung around the same age as the Galaxy S3. All seem like very cool projects. I hope I can eventually do these one day, as I am sure many of you would love to see these projects as well. Anyway, adios amigos, I will be hitting the road in my Pagani Zonda in Ashport 6. See you at the finish line.